We're talking about time, place, and space in this particular session. And there's going to be a pretty good amount of management and leadership information here as opposed to the field text. And what we're going to do is we've already dealt with all four major categories of insect disease, environmental, and cultural problems that occur in the designed ecosystems that you're going to be invited in to problem solve. And in this session we're going to bring them all together in some field training sessions and some management leadership aspects that include three distinct separations of time, place, and space. Time, we're talking about optimal windows of growth and maintenance that govern our biostimulants and our inoculation and population applications. Now follow me on this because it's very important. Anytime there's money in the budget to do it can be one sort of a guideline, and if there's money in the budget to do it now, then you need to ask yourself, is there an action threshold? We're talking about time now. There are seasonal considerations as well. Is it appropriate in the cycle of integrated pest management in our single management strategy of using the 6 tree preservation actions that you have now been taught in this series? You know, is it appropriate within one of these to do or complete this action? We also have the process when you've got men, equipment, and there's money in the budget and it's time within the process. Have you got the right men, equipment, and amendments present on the job to do it? This requires a tremendous amount of advanced planning, and this is where your management and leadership component is going to come into this. Do you have the right ground conditions, and is it the right time of the year? There's all kinds of things to be considered in time, and we'll go next to the place and space, and we'll talk about those next. In time, place, and space, we have place considerations. At first, in the beginning, located our most dangerous trees, and using our tree resource evaluation, we defined in a home or a commercial setting, the most dangerous trees are the ones that are big enough and close enough, and you determine this with your measurements with your clinometer and your DBH tapes and the other instruments that we have demonstrated to you, how close this tree is to the structure and will it do any harm if it falls on it. Those are the most dangerous trees to be dealt with. Those are the ones that we look at first. It's like the ripple effect. When you cast a pebble in the pond and it ripples out, how far out away from the structures do you go to determine how these trees are classified? And that is the first classification of place within the designed ecosystem that we determine. And then within each plant's or group of plants ecosystem, we have the ideal place within their critical root zones to apply the inoculants, the biostimulants, the aeration decompaction, and the other things. Root collars, of course, are self-explanatory because that's right there at the base of the tree. And if you're following our sequence, our gateway, then you will be able to start right there with the root collar and get clues as to how far out and how far down you must go to find these non-woody, fibrous, absorbing roots that you've seen us illustrate to you in so many different ways. And where there are replacements needed in bushes or trees, you are now into an analysis and an understanding of the design intent of ownership to where you can determine what places are most critical for their designed ecosystem. Do they have outdoor entertainment areas that they want to keep shady and safe? like the 4 big oak trees, and our owner that wanted to put a swing underneath, store certain building materials safely underneath them without having them destroyed by limbs falling on them or trees. And so there's all kinds of considerations for that, and there are also energy savings of shade, climate control, erosion control, and soil formation. These are the critical places that you must determine within the designed ecosystem. Time, place, and space. Let's talk about some space. We're talking about space above ground, and we're talking about space below ground. In a designed ecosystem, we're going to manage and evaluate all of these spaces critically. There's been more and more information come out regarding vertical gardening in urban environments where you don't have much space. If you intend to supplement your family's food budget with grown food, then vertical gardening is the way to go. In a manner of speaking, everything out there in your landscape is vertical. All the trees that grow up have a certain amount of canopy, and we must evaluate how much space they need for that canopy. When you put in a replacement tree in a space, we see it happen all the time, where you put the right tree in the wrong place, too close to the house, and before you know it, in the first 2 or 3, 4 years of growth, it has outgrown its space, it has overtaken the structure itself, it's begun to interfere with the foundation, strangle septic systems. There's just a number of things that can happen if you don't plan the space properly. And so what we want to do is go above ground with formative pruning. In other words, we want all the trees to be formed to their place in space, and that is vertical. It's what's above the house. On the southeast, southwest sides, we're talking about shade, which is energy savings. That's a line item of savings that they can knock off their budget every month if they have shade during the screaming hot summers. Last summer, here in the South, we had almost 90 days of 90-degree temperatures, hottest recorded time on record, and I'm hearing these hottest ever, coldest, deepest, most, least. I'm hearing these extremes expressed all the time, and so the preparations that you need to make for your property owners in their designed ecosystems have to protect them from these extremes. Just last night there were 109 tornadoes touched down in a certain part of our country. Stay on the ground for 5 hours. We've never heard of this before, but outside of these areas there were extreme winds. And so are your trees protected from these extreme events? Can they survive these extreme events? Below ground, we have a root to shoot ratio. In other words, if you're going to have a tree that's planted here and you want it to grow to 30 feet tall and you want it to shade this part of the house, then it has to have an appropriate amount of space below ground in order for it to root and support itself. And we also have to make plans with the homeowner for access to their yard. Are you going to have to walk everything in and out of their yard, or is there space for mechanical access? Can you drive your compact utility loader, your tractor, your truck, or whatever it takes? Is there space to deliver and dump topsoil? If you bring in 40 or 50 bags of topsoil, do you have a place to put them? This is space that they need for recycling and staging and work positioning. And so you've got, relating back to the first segment of our series where we talked about root collar excavations and including all of the trees in a plan. These are aspects of the plan: time, place, and space that must be included to make it useful, to make it a savings document, and to help it contribute to cheap to keep. operating this home for the least cost, least risk, and thereby growing its value, its new green grow and values from savings that can be achieved from the plans that you and your owner as the fifth element make for this designed ecosystem.